Hello, everyone, and a huge welcome to our AWS She Builds CloudU Women in Tech panel this evening. We are currently running a CloudU training program where we've got about 500 women that are all studying together to do their cloud practitioner certification. It's a lot of fun. We've got a Slack channel and we do online Q&As with some of our incredible AWS architects. And we have a few special events like tonight. So the purpose of tonight is really for me to have the pleasure of hosting some amazing women talking about their journeys in tech and sharing some learnings, and also allowing you all the opportunity to ask some questions. So without further ado, I will welcome our incredible panelists, starting with Michelle Gleason. So welcome, Michelle. Michelle is the Director of Engineering at a cloud guru, where she gets to combine her love of building software with her passion for making tech accessible and inclusive to everyone. She has seen the industry transform from on-prem physical infrastructure through the whole lift and shift phase, and now to the widespread adoption of cloud-first software architecture. Michelle was previously the technical practice lead at Seek, and before that at Xero as a senior developer and developer team lead. Michelle is a huge advocate for diversity and inclusion, blogging and speaking at tech events in and around Melbourne. And she's also the founder of the Melbourne-based meetup group and online community, Tech Leading Ladies, that works to bridge the gender gap in technical leadership teams. I was lucky enough to attend a couple of these meetups while I was living in Melbourne the year before last, and they were awesome. So thanks for joining us tonight, Michelle.
Thank you so much.
We also have Eva Tusser. Eva is originally from the Czech Republic and has worked in Europe, Asia Pacific region, and now Australia. She has experience in various areas such as procurement, quality and change management, to roles in senior management, including the CEO of an automotive company. As a long life learner, Eva decided to step outside her comfort zone, leave the corporate life, and after a sabbatical in Bali, very jealous, Eva ventured into the tech startup world. Absolutely living the dream. Can't wait to hear more about that. Eva now works for Austral, a leading company in commercial air conditioning, where she's responsible for change and quality management driven by data. Eva's always been passionate about tech and data, which motivated her to join the non-profit community She Loves Data, where she leads the Sydney chapter and the global data analytics team. As a strong advocate for gender and cultural diversity, she's active in building the professional network for women in Australia. Welcome, Eva. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Moving on to our very own Mai Nishanti. Mai Nishanti has been in tech roles all her life and is an AWS solutions architect who enjoys talking about containers and security. She's a well-architected subject matter expert, so if you want to know more about how to make your containers well-architected with AWS Cloud Native tools, register for reInvent and catch her session in January. reInvent is our virtual conference where you can learn new skills around cloud, with all sessions available for free starting on the 30th of November. A little bit of a plug there. Thanks, Mai. Mai is also passionate about inclusion, diversity, and equity within the tech sector and is co-director of the AWS She Builds program. If you want to know more about how to start or navigate your career in tech, please feel free to connect with her on LinkedIn, and probably feel free to connect with all of us on LinkedIn. So thank you, Mai, for being a mentor for our She Builds CloudU program, and also thanks for joining us on our panel tonight.
Thanks, Donna.
And definitely last but not least, Molly Rowe. Molly is a professional multitasker who loves the challenge. Molly is a people person who never says no to a good cup of tea. That is not the bio Molly gave me. It's from her LinkedIn profile, but I love it so much. It very much resonates, and who doesn't love a good cup of tea? Anyway, Molly is currently the head of people and culture for a software company called Record Point. She did a degree in pharmaceutical science and honours in formulation chemistry, a master's in management HR, and holds several cloud certifications. She worked for IBM for 3 years in cloud-based roles, then joined DevOps consultancy Vibrato as their community manager, helping them grow and subsequently acquired by Servian. Molly has a side business, The Grey Merchants, and is passionate about growing community, volunteering for Women in Technology and DevOps Days Sydney's, among probably other things. Thank you for joining us, Molly. And if you are just joining in, welcome everyone to our Women in Tech panel. So I've got a few questions to get things started, but feel free to start popping your questions in the chat as well, and we'll get to as many questions as we can. So question number one, I feel like a game show host, this is fun. What did you want to be when you grew up, and did you think that you would be working in tech? And I'm going to go over to Michelle to get us started.
I did not think I would be working in tech. I didn't even know tech was a thing when I was growing up. I wanted to be an actress, and I think I wanted to be an airline hostess. Unfortunately, I'm only 5 foot something, so that was never going to happen. And I really didn't even find out about tech until I was partway through my first degree at uni. So very late in the game.
Excellent. Looking forward to hearing more about that. And Eva, what about you?
Well, I was actually connected to tech from my very young age because I originally come from IT family, and to be precise, female IT family. So my mom was a programmer. My sister is a CIO at the Rice University. And look, it was like when I was a little girl, I remember that I was entering every time when I went to visit my mom to the office. So in that time, like ages ago, there was like the first office you entered full of computers, the second office full of computers, and then somewhere in the back was my mom with the big monitor, and then there was only like the screen with the green signs and everything. So this was really like literally my childhood, but I didn't think that I will probably step into it that early because I had a couple of passions. One was art, second my passion is cars, and the third is tech. I love tech. So I studied art. Then I spent 15 years or 16 years in automotive, and now I switched to tech. So I'm actually fulfilling all of my passions right now.
Amazing. You're just breaking all of the stereotypes. I love it. I love it. And over to you, Mai.
Yeah, sure. So what I wanted to be when I grew up was a ninja. Back then there were a lot of movies around female ninjas. So there were really great role models. And it's great because apparently, well, these female ninjas were actual real within Japanese history. And what they were meant to do is to find, to do espionage and then obviously go to enemy health services and gather knowledge and to gain trust and to listen to conversations. So that strangely sounds like what I do right now as a solutions architect. Now, I did take a ninjutsu class because I thought it was cool. However, we didn't get to throw throwing stars, so I was really disappointed. And I managed to, so I ditched that dream and I studied psychology, which doesn't have a connection there at all to tech either. But I was really bored with psychology because it wasn't what I thought it might be. And I fell into tech, which I'll get into in the next question.
Awesome. So, I mean, solution architect, ninja, I feel like they're not that far away, or unicorn ninja, we get referred to that a lot, right? And over to you, Molly. Tell us a bit about what you thought you were going to be when you grew up, and was it in tech?
I don't think I ever had any idea. I'm pretty sure I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. But the reality is I wanted lots of different things. I wanted to be a chemist. I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be a model. Just bounced around, and my parents went to uni. So it was really, I want to be educated. And I went and did a pharmaceutical degree and thought I'd, be Harry Potter and mixing things and saving lives. And kind of ended up not loving it in terms of where I was going to go from a career direction, and loved people. And then I went and followed that people passion. And what I found was that there's a really huge drive in the technology industry towards being more people centric and away from just the technology from the coding side of things, but into how technology changes people's lives, and internal to the technology business, how there's so much impact on the way that we do things, dictating the output, not just what we do. So it was kind of an easy transition for me. I fell into it kind of by accident when I was applying for internships out of my master's, but it was probably the best thing that happened to me in terms of having a drive for my career going forward.
Awesome, love it. So now, can you tell us a bit about different job roles that you've had over the years and what you're doing now in your job role? So we'll go to Eva first.
Okay, so well, as I mentioned at the beginning, I started my work career in the automotive area, where I went through a different area, starting at the procurement, then the quality management, project management, and at the end, I ended up my big project as a CEO of our daughter company in Slovakia. Um, it would also make sense that I was really very much working with the data all of the time, despite in that time it was only about Excel. So when I worked in the purchasing area, I was actually responsible for the pricing, but also for purchasing. So I was like actually literally like writing scripts in the Excel to calculate the best market prices and the periods for purchasing, because we were purchasing goods from China, Europe, and all over the world, and the timing. So I was every time playing with the data, how to adjust it so that we have the best results. And when I moved to the quality management, it actually started because I was a project manager of our implementation of our new ERP, Microsoft Dynamics AX. That was a 9-month project. Very tough, to be honest. And this was the beginning when I touched this area. And then, as you also mentioned, I moved to Bali. I decided somehow when I was 35 that I had enough of this and I need to relax a little bit. So I moved to Bali for 1.5 years and just to relax a little bit. But I started to work remotely for a tech company. It was a tech startup actually, and I did the business development for them. So, and this was the first time that I really touched properly the tech industry and I realized all of the opportunities that they are on the market, all the tools that I didn't have before. And I was like, wow, how come that if I knew that these tools are working, like the BI and everything, I could make a fortune and everything. So this was like now at the beginning. And then I moved to Australia, and now, as you mentioned, I joined the company at the very beginning, Australia, where I'm again responsible for change management and actually also the digitalization of all the processes. It's not easy because it's a very old-fashioned company, and if I tell you that when I joined the company, they still had on their business cards fax number. This will probably tell you a little bit more. So it's kind of like a huge project, but we are, let's say, getting really somewhere, and I'm happy because I can see the results. And last but not least, 2 years ago, I joined the nonprofit organization Sheila Zara, originally from Singapore, and this is an organization where we are trying to help women to get into tech. So we are organizing workshops, free workshops for women, meetups to get networking, to help them with the first steps. So this is where I am now.
Fantastic, so interesting. And Mai, heading to you, tell us a bit about your background.
Yeah, sure. So I fell into tech through, I think someone else mentioned that they work for IBM. So my first job was being a help desk level 1 person for IBM. So back in the day, we had to support external customers for IBM PCs and laptops, and they pretty much trained us from the ground up, which is great. And how did I get that job? Good question, because I didn't have any experience with tech before getting that help desk job. And what helped me was my language skills around Japanese. So they wanted a bilingual help desk person. So that got my foot in the door. And then I became a technical writer / translator. So that's just translating Japanese text into English and making sure that it all made sense. And then I went overseas. I went to Japan and I worked for Morgan Stanley as a junior sysadmin. So that was pretty cool. And then came back to Australia and became sysadmin back at IBM. And then I missed a step there. I thought, oh, hey, I didn't do desktop support there, so I'll just have a go at doing desktop support. So that was pretty cool. So it just built my customer one-on-one type skills. And then I became a team leader for the desktop support team. And then I progressed into a senior sysadmin, same organization. And then I got bored because 6 years in the same, not the same role, but same organization. And there wasn't much innovation happening being public sector, despite, being a permanent role, cushy job, public sector, all the perks and all that kind of stuff, no innovation happening, unfortunately. So I decided to venture into a contracting role as a solutions architect at another public sector organization, which is great. But I think the common theme with government roles, there can be a little bit of red tape and the innovation side of things. You can't fully if there's red tape. So that was something that I need to explore a little bit further. So I went to work for a startup for a fully remote, and this is before COVID, the BC days, 100% remote, 100% distributed globally. And it was really a really cool company. And then after that, I became an AWS Solutions Architect. So lots of tech roles. Yeah, that's me.
Love it. And one of the reasons that I like asking these type of questions is that, I think everything, it's so much more about portfolio careers now, and it's not that linear. You just stay in one particular role for your entire career, moving around between different roles, and the similarities between different skill sets you need for different roles is just really interesting and really important to understand, I think. So over to you, Molly, because I know you've had a pretty decent portfolio career.
Yeah, I mean, I think that concept of a portfolio career is really interesting, about how much of it is translatable soft skills in addition to very specific technical skills. But while the technology, world is progressing so quickly, like no one person could be across everything that's coming out from a technology perspective. It's really about choosing the things that you're interested in and going down that path and augmenting it with other skills and a learn set and a growth mindset. Right? So my professional, business side of my career started at IBM. I was an intern there, reporting through one tier into the COO for APAC, like doing utilization reports for all of our consultants across Australia, like understanding where they were and what skills they had from a technical perspective, and helping them retrain into, different jobs for, different client engagements. So, saying you've got this skill set, you might be able to go into this role, and helping them retrain when maybe their skill set wasn't applicable for where they wanted to be or where they were going from a career perspective. And I found that really interesting. And then I kind of moved into a graduate role, and I don't know how many of you in the audience have had graduate roles, but when you have a graduate role for a large business, they often don't tell you what job you're doing. They just say you're a graduate. And you say, okay. Then you say, what am I doing tomorrow? And they say, tomorrow you're a project manager. You go, okay, cool. And next week you'll be billable to the client. And you go, oh, all right, I better learn what this project management thing is. So, I picked that up, and I was doing old school infrastructure delivery projects. So, delivering VMs using resources from IBM that were both onshore and offshore to deliver. It was slow. It was out of date from a technology perspective, and my partner at the time was kind of on the cutting edge of technology, and I could just see the gap widening from that perspective. So I moved about within IBM. I went and did an Agile certification. I became a Scrum Master. I was running infrastructure as code delivery projects, which was really interesting and much more kind of aligned with where I wanted to go. It was cloud related, albeit IBM cloud. And then I got the opportunity to be mentored by the most amazing woman. Her name is Millie Forbes. She is now the CTO of IBM APAC. It's incredible, their first female CTO. But at the time, I was running a startup within IBM, which was a cloud agnostic consultancy that was all about helping business understand what migration to the cloud might look like, and really that brokerage around which cloud might be the right choice for them based on their infrastructure, based on their skills, based on their staffing. And I was helping them with these consulting pieces that helped them understand where their skills gap were and what retraining would look like for their staff in terms of what a new world would look like when they migrated away from physical infrastructure. After that, I felt like a very small cog in a very big machine and decided to go out into the startup world, like many of us have done. And I became the community manager, which is approximately as vague in a job description as it was in a title. And I did a little bit of everything, like you do in startups. You all wear whatever hats need wearing and do whatever job needs doing to get the client through the door or the event on or whatever. I walked in, and on my second day, the person who was meant to train me quit, and I just had to learn on the go. I recruited, I ran our community offerings, so we ran meetups, we ran conferences, we did lots of different things, and we were just a part of that technical community. We were cutting edge, we were interesting, and hiring the kind of people and building that kind of culture internally within a tech company was just interesting for me. I went in at 15 people, we grew to 55, we were acquired. It was the ride of a lifetime over 2 years. And now I am the head of people and culture for a software company that is global, Melbourne, Sydney, Seattle. It has its own challenges. We're trying to deploy software end to end, software lifecycle, it's a SaaS solution, and deal with people problems in global scale. And that's a really interesting and challenging role to be in that's still very tech adjacent. Like the ability to know what's going on is very relevant even when I'm doing a non-technical role.
Love it. Thank you, Molly. And over to you, Michelle.
That was an amazing story. I really don't have the portfolio career. Mine is a little bit more linear than that. Before I started working professionally, I was waiting tables for a lot of years, going through school, and went traveling and decided to try my hand at being a chef. So I did that for a while. Realized I didn't really like the hours. It was a lot of hours and not a lot of family time. So I thought, 9-to-5 job sounds good. I'll go to school and be an accountant. It was very big at the time, getting into accounting. So I started a commerce degree, and you could major in accounting, and loved accounting so much that I failed accounting 1 and accounting 2. But luckily, one of the electives was a coding subject. It was actually COBOL, can you believe it? And I fell in love with it. I thought it was amazing. And then I completely changed my major and did all the coding subjects I could do. And I thought, yeah, this is what I want to do. This is amazing. I just loved creating things and building things, and writing a few simple commands and making something happen, something that could help people. So I thought I want to be a developer, and I graduated in the year of the .com crash, which was probably pretty unfortunate. So you were talking before a little bit about having going for graduate roles in some of the larger companies like IBM. I absolutely wanted to do that. Went to all the careers fairs, applied for them all, and that year no one got any jobs. So I went back to restaurants and managed a restaurant for quite a while. One day I went home in my lunch break to print out some more menus, and I thought I'll just jump online and see what's available. And I saw a junior web developer role in a very small consultancy in Melbourne. It literally had 3 developers. And I thought, what the hell, I'll apply. And they actually rang me back before I got back to the restaurant. So about a week later, I think I started my very first coding job, which was amazing. So that was in a very small consultancy in Melbourne, and I learned so much so quickly. And I actually think back to the coding skills I had when I started, and it's hard to understand what I actually learnt at uni. I've probably learnt more in those first 3 months than I did in my entire degree. And yeah, I had a really great time at that consultancy. I outgrew the role a little, so I moved to another consultancy in Melbourne called OBS, and they were really focused on SharePoint products, which probably wasn't my passion or my love. But luckily at the time I was there, they created a little side project, which ended up being the flagship product for the company Nintex. So if anyone knows Nintex, a Melbourne-based software company. And I was lucky enough to be in the group of 4 that were kind of the people that were relegated to the boardroom with pizza and pasta and just coding for 16 hours a day to get this thing out the door. And that's when I really discovered my love for building products, like more than consultancy so much, but I just loved taking a problem for the customers and creating something amazing for them. So from Nintex, I should have looked up my LinkedIn profile. I think there's a bit that went on in there for a few years. I went on a few detours. I had a few kids. I took maternity leave a few times. Every time I came back from maternity leave, I thought, oh, I won't know how to code. The industry's moved on. I would have forgotten everything. But actually figured out it's like riding a bike. And yeah, the second time coming back, I wasn't quite as nervous as the first time. Yeah, code doesn't move on that fast, thankfully. So I worked for some large companies and some small companies. I took team lead roles, I had senior dev roles, and was quite happy to go back and forwards between the two as various challenges came up. So even though I've always had, a software developer role, junior, mid, senior, tech lead, whatever it was, the challenge has always been very different, and they've all required a level of specialization that was different from the last role. So I was never bored. So for example, in one company I was working for, they needed to do a lot in terms of security uplift. So I kind of grabbed that with both hands and almost became an AppSec engineer for a while and drove security capability uplift across the dev teams. Another time, there was a lot of focus on search engine optimization. So I almost became quite an expert in that and did that for a while before moving on to the next challenge. When I was working for Xero in Melbourne, I was leading a team of developers, and you could say I'd really kind of hit my stride technically and was very proficient in architectures and having a lot of fun creating product there as well. And then I really developed this love for people and understanding, okay, if I lead the team in a certain way, I actually get more out of the team and we can do more. So got really into leadership and management and how I could grow those skills to get the best out of the people and create a work environment that people love to come to and love to be in. And it was probably my time at Xero as well when I started to get a little bit frustrated with the industry in terms of the gender imbalance. I was actually the only female engineer in an engineering team of more than 30, I think, in Melbourne at the time, and that was pretty tough. And I wouldn't say it was the most inclusive place for me at that time. And so I did a lot of work driving initiatives to try to change the unconscious bias that we found and work to improve the processes and hiring practices and onboarding and ran various initiatives to really improve the inclusion. And through my journey there, I was also really developing a passion for coaching good engineering practices as well. So I was an XP developer way back and really believe test-driven development, pair programming, clean code really makes life so much better for engineers. So I got very much into coaching those pieces and running workshops internally and then starting to speak at conferences about these things as well. Then an opportunity came up at Seek to actually do that as a job, so to be a technical practices coach. So of course, I jumped on that, went over to Seek, and I had a great time there, coaching people in engineering practices. And then that really sort of paved the way for me to move into an engineering manager role. And I had a big think about the type of role I wanted when I was planning to leave Seek. And I really wanted to go to a much smaller company, around 30 people-ish. I wanted it to be based in Melbourne, and I had really enjoyed at my time at Xero being in a culture that was very tech first. So I wanted to find another company that was, the CEO was the original developer, like one of the founders, and that's what I found in CloudGuru. And I can't believe I've only been there for a year, because a few people were talking about acquisitions before. It has been an absolute wild ride. We did acquire Linux Academy in the time, so I've been fortunate enough to be on the project that had to bring those two platforms together. So it was such a great learning opportunity, and so much growth, and have recently been promoted to the Director of Engineering there. So I feel very fortunate. It really feels like right place, right time for me. That's probably about it.
Thank you. And now my next question, some of you have kind of touched on a little bit. Your passion clearly shines through for how much you love working in the tech industry. So I'm going to combine an audience question as well. So let's talk about, what do you love about working in the tech industry? And also from an audience perspective, what motivates you to stay working in quite a male-dominated industry still? And, Michelle, you touched on some of the programs and things that you were driving in your organisations to help that. I'm sure all of us have been part of some of those things as well. So let's have a little bit of a conversation about that, and we'll start with Maya.
Yeah, sure. So what do I love about working in the tech industry as a solutions architect, especially in AWS, get to experiment and do so many different things. And you feel like you're a startup owner within AWS in itself. So on one day, I can feel like I am a tech psychologist that is listening to customers' problems, technical problems, and providing solutions for them. And also, obviously, a Twitch streamer that we're doing right now. And a trainer as well, so helping customers with technical content from AWS, and also helping out with CloudU with Q&As. So, and also refining my presentation for reInvent, which is coming up. So, every day is different, and I could say working across so many different roles and so many different organizations, probably a plug for AWS, but I feel that AWS, you get so many chances of innovating across with different teams and the community as well. So I think it's a really, really cool place to work. But in terms of that question around what motivates you to stay in a male-dominated career, I think for me it's just proving a point. There's going to be a lot of haters, regardless of gender. And there is, especially in a male-dominated area, if there's other women, sometimes they may not be supportive, and that's happened to me before. So what we need to do as women is to band together as a community and lift each other up and not, tear each other down, which, unfortunately does happen. And, work together with everyone, regardless of gender, and how to dispel myths. There's always going to be a little bit of sexism still there, and I've experienced that, and I'm pretty sure people can talk about it. But one of the examples that I can come up with was it wasn't at an interview; it was just a tech review meeting, and a couple of my peers and myself were just sitting down and just having some chit chat before the meeting, and then one of the guys asking, "Hey, so you're a solutions architect. Where's your credentials? Do you actually have credentials to be a solutions architect?" So I was like, oh, I was really surprised by that question. I did have credentials, so I said, yes, I do have my AWS SA associate at that time. And But have you ever heard that question being asked for other people, especially men? You know, no one asks men about their credentials in a meeting. If you're not in an interview, you don't ask those questions because it's assumed. But I've been mistaken for a sales rep before. Not that there's anything wrong with sales rep; they do awesome work, but you know, I always feel like I have to prove myself over and over again that I'm actually here. I'm a technical person. I'm a solutions architect. So, so yeah, for me, it's just proving a point, being visible all the time, and dispelling myths.
Love it. Molly, I'm sure you've got a few cents to add.
Well, you are much more polite than I would have been in that circumstance, I tell you. So, in terms of why I love working in tech, I feel like it's the industry that is so, like, fundamentally, you can see the impact that you make every day. Right, we are driving the world forward. No matter which kind of element of tech you work in, you are empowering people. You are helping make the world a better, more efficient, more accessible to those who, you know, otherwise couldn't access those things. You're just, in general, you know, from coding a piece of software, like Michelle said, and, you know, seeing the client light up, to you know, actually working with underprivileged communities and helping people, you know, get ahead of their education or take that next step up in life. Just, you know, the software that my company produces at the moment is records management, data management, and information security. And on the surface, not the sexiest thing. But at the end of the day, we're working with amazing institutions like Australian Human Rights Commission, APRA, ASIC, those kind of places, to help make them more efficient, help them do the things that they do better, and keep your data safe. And like everything that we do within technology has those like long running implications. And for me, that's a really big element of what keeps me interested and excited about technology every day. In terms of, you know, how I stay motivated being in what is, you know, a male dominated industry, and an industry where, you know, minorities struggle for, you know, whichever minority that might be, you have to be the change you want to see. And for me, it's, you have to be in it to win it. You've got to be there to be a part of it, to be able to change it. You can't throw rocks at the monolith from outside and say you need to be better. You've got to be in there demonstrating as a leader what it looks like to be better. How do you change, you know, unconscious bias practices in hiring? How do you put the right culture and the right team structures and the right processes in place within a business to help make sure that it's an inclusive place to be, that, you know, those things are empowering minorities and women to be successful in their jobs? There's so much more than just kind of getting in the door, because after that, you've got to know what success looks like. You've got to be empowered to reach out for help. You've got to, and like all of the social science says that diversity is better for everyone involved, right? Like you have better diversity of opinion, you have better outcomes, better solutions. But we have to get there, and then we don't, it's not just about getting there, it's about staying there. You know, we've all had those situations that that Mike kind of talked about in one way or another. Like I've had someone literally repeat the solution to the problem that I just gave at the board meeting. And I was like, wow, I was sure I just said that out loud. But, you know, things like that, right? And you can't change it from the outside. You've got to be there. You've got to call it when you see it. And you have to, for lack of a better word, power through. But it's unfortunate that we do. But there have been women for generations before us that have paved the way for the rights that we have now, whether it's suffrage allowing us the right to vote, whether it's, you know, feminism all the way through the 60s, 70s and 80s that got us to this point now where, you know, ratios of female CEOs are improving. You know, there's more women in tech than there ever has been before. So it's really about just continuing that improvement and being part of the change you want to see.
Absolutely. Michelle, anything to add?
I would say that I have seen the industry get a lot better. So May's example before. I absolutely have that happen. Going to a software development conference and being asked, why testers were coming along, or why BAs were coming along, because it was assumed I was a BA, because I was, the only woman in the room. And also even a lot more horrendous situations in terms of my pregnancy and how that was perceived at the time. I was actually demoted because, Molly, there was no one like you on the people and culture team when that happened. But I was told that I wouldn't want the leadership responsibility because I had a baby that was coming now. So I would say there's been a huge shift since then. People didn't know what unconscious bias was. They didn't talk about it. No one had diversity and inclusion on the agenda at all. This week I found out that my company has an OKR at a company level around diversity and inclusion. I could have cried because it was always such a fight, from the ground up to try to get anything changed. So I feel like there is real change coming along. But it is hard. And even though it's getting better, sometimes there is an element of, well, why do I do this? Why does this have to be my fight? But ultimately, I stay because I love the job. I love the people I work with. I love what we do. I'm so inspired by our mission and by the people around me, and it changes so often, and there's so much variety, and I really don't think that I would be able to get that level of variety in the same role, like in the same company, in a different industry. It's also provided me a lot of flexibility, being able to work remotely before it was a thing, really, because everything I needed was right here on my laptop and always has been. And that's really helped in terms of, school pickups and drop-offs, or sick days, or such, kids' sick days. So I think the flexibility and just the variety, and the fact that I just love building software has probably kept me here, even though it's been a bit of a challenge from time to time.
Yeah, fantastic. And Eva, over to you. We can see you much better now. You're nice and bright.
Yeah. Sorry, I started when there was a daylight, so I kind of underestimated it. But I have my secret help, so he came to save me. Look, I come from a male-dominated industry. Automotive, it's even worse than tech. Believe me, they look at you like, "What do you know about cars? Seriously, go." I'm used to it, but it's still there, and it is what it is. And within the time, look, I learned to just laugh about it and actually make jokes about it. So if I tell you that, for example, at the beginning when I joined the company, after a couple of weeks, some other colleague who was not normally there, he just came there to the office and he saw me there among all of the men, and he was like, well, good that we finally have a secretary here. I was like, looked at him, and he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I mean assistant." I was like, "Okay, fine." And I didn't really like, okay, I even don't fight with it, because this is just the way it is. Because automatically, if you are a woman in a male-dominated, then you are just having those like normal roles. So it is what it is, and it's much better than it used to be. Despite I can't really compare that much the Australian market, but look, I can also see a lot of advantages being a woman in the male-dominated industry. I think that we all agree that we have some kind of a different added values that we can bring to the table, that we can bring to the business. And I think that the most important is that when the men will finally understand that it doesn't make sense to fight with us, but use our abilities and how we can create a great team, because then we can improve much better. So this is something that I'm trying to also to reach, and with them, and to cooperate and show them that I'm here to help them, and I'm more than happy to learn from them. And Sometimes it doesn't really work, but I can say that in most of the cases, it actually does work. And the reason why I love tech industry, I would say because it just kind of makes sense. All the things that 1 + 1 is 2, and it's also because I love business. I love to create business. I like to create values. I like to move on things. I love to improve things. And from my point of view, data is something that helps you a lot. If you are able to gather the data, and if you are able to proceed the data and then understand them also, that you can really read it and understand what is actually the message behind that, then you, from my point of view, you have like 80% of that, and then you need to actually make the right decisions based on that. And again, every time check the data whether you're improving or not. It's like a computer, really, like what you are checking. So this is what I really love about it, because it helps me a lot to do my work. And another thing why I love this industry, because this is an industry that is still improving. It's still moving. There's a lot of improvement, and I'm like, I love learning. So, and it's nothing that, okay, you would learn how to do this, and that's it for the end of the life. Because next year they are releasing a new version, and you have to move on, and you have to learn everything. And there are new tools coming on the market, new innovations and everything. So this is like a constant learning for me, and that's why I love it.
Fantastic, thank you. And I'm going to add my 2 cents as well, because I can't help myself. But one of the things I love is how it is such a competitive industry, tech. So because it's competitive, there needs to be more of a focus on attracting employees, retaining employees. And when there is that focus, it does improve the culture and the inclusive environments, because organisations know, as Molly talked about, that diverse teams perform better, make the company more money. So I think, one of the reasons I see so much potential in the tech industry to be a great place to work is because of that competitiveness for employees. The other thing I would say is that I think, we need to embrace men helping as well. There's a lot of male champions of change that really want to help increase diversity, increase inclusive environments. And I think we need to be really embracing and engaging with men, and not just trying to do it all on our own, which can be tempting to feel like we're butting up against them. But there's actually a lot of men that want to help us in this journey as well. And the last point I would make is that I think when you're looking at organisations to work for, it's really important to look at their leadership teams and their management teams, and look at do they have women on their teams? Do they have diversity on those teams? Because they're the people that are going to be predominantly setting the direction, setting the strategy. So if they don't, then that should come into your decision when you're looking for a job as well. So next question, and this is another bit of a combo with a question that we've got from the audience as well. So lots of people nowadays say that experience is a lot more important than study and certifications. So the first part of my question is, do you agree with that? The second part is, if that is or isn't true, how do you break into the tech industry if you're changing careers or pivoting your job role? And the question from the audience is around the portfolio career. So if you are pivoting your job role, how do you convince someone to give you a go in a different role, moving sideways without having to start from the beginning again and forego some salary or seniority? So I think there's a lot in that, but whatever tips you've got in that would be awesome. And we're going to start with Molly.
Boy, huge question. Cool. So I tend to be the most educated person in a lot of the rooms that I end up in, just because I did a lot of degrees. I don't think that makes me the smartest person in any given room. There is a difference between intelligence and education. Education gets you something. It teaches you how to learn. It teaches you how to problem solve. It teaches you how to work with others, and sets you up for your career and your growth. And formal education can be really valuable. My personal view is that when it comes to tech, it's not mandatory. particularly when we're talking about the university, kind of the slow-moving education system side of things. You know, I've worked for the University of Melbourne. I was a tutor. It takes years to change the curriculum in some of the larger institutions, and it means that you're learning outdated tech. Some of the fundamentals, you know, learning C# or Java, it's fine. It's good to understand the basics of computing. You learn things like object-oriented programming. They do now give you the basics of Agile, and you know, you do tend to do an industry placement or something like that. And facilitating that and that part of that university degree can be really, really valuable, right? We run a really excellent graduate program at Record Point. It's a big part of what we do. It's a big part of how we plan to grow the engineers of the future rather than try and hire them out of a very competitive market, as Donna said. So, you know, I kind of see firsthand some of the gaps that come out from that formal education system. I've hired people who dropped out of TAFE. My partner, who was a head of technology, never finished a degree. So people succeed in this industry without it. But if you're retraining from a different skill set or from a different career path, it's good to get the fundamentals down. And it's good to get it in a recognizable way so that your employer can give you that chance, can take that chance on you, because they have at least some level of assurance that you have the knowledge that you say that you do. If you're reskilling internally, there is very few companies that don't have a technology department within that company, no matter what they do, no matter what industry they're in, right? Convincing them to give you a go can be as easy as having a conversation and starting to build relationships there. It doesn't mean it'll happen overnight, but it does mean when there's a spot, when there's a gap in the skills side of things, when they have an extra project that they can't get to that's in their backlog, that kind of thing can be thrown your way. You can volunteer. One of the biggest things for me at IBM was I automated my 9-to-5 job really early on. There was a lot of macros, and I did a lot of like Excel automation to make that happen and turned a 5-day-a-week job into a 1-day-a-week job. And then I went out into the business and volunteered. I said, hey, do you need extra help? Do you, can I help you with this thing? Can I be a part of this? Can I shadow you into this and learn some more from you? Those are kind of techniques that you can do to grow adjacently within different businesses. The business you're in right now might be too small for that. It might, not have those opportunities for you. And my best advice there is go out into the communities. Obviously, we're COVID right now. It's very difficult to go out to a meetup and strike up a conversation and build a relationship. But there's opportunities to work on small projects, to do a coding camp, those kind of things that will get you tangible, visual elements of recognition for the skills that you have that you can use to leverage yourself in your next career. In terms of going across-wise and not losing seniority or salary, that may or may not be possible. If you're currently a people manager and you want to move into another department where you don't want to be managing people, but you want to be using your technical skills, you may lose some salary or some seniority. It would be very difficult to move across and completely change your role and not do those things. But it depends on the size of business. It depends on your level of skill. There's lots of variables there that makes it a difficult, very broad question to answer, but I'm absolutely always happy to, dive into the specifics of your situation. If you want to reach out and have a chat, buy me a virtual tea.
Love it. Well, there's no point asking you the easy questions. Like, what would we be here for? So Michelle, I'm sure you've had plenty of mentoring and helping people through this type of thing. So would love to hear your thoughts as well.
Yeah, I was wondering when Molly was talking what I might add to this conversation. It was a very thorough response. And what you were saying about sometimes needing to, take a little bit of a pay hit and step back, is absolutely true. I've even done this, within tech, so gone from a leadership role to a senior dev role when the work was really inspiring. But what I've found for myself and for others is you very quickly tend to level up again. So all you're doing is building those fundamental dev skills or tech skills, but then you can bring all those other, the core skills and the soft skills that you've been used to using into your work. So once you get a level of proficiency with the tools, then you'll very quickly be able to build yourself up again. So in terms of certifications, I feel like they still do play a place. They still do have a place in the industry. Certainly, as a hiring manager, especially where I am now, we're fully serverless. So there's an expectation around some cloud proficiency for all engineers. Now, if those people haven't had the opportunity to work with that in the industry, having a certification or even suggesting that they're working towards a certification shows me that they're interested, that they're thinking about it, and they're doing what they can to upskill. So we certainly understand that not everybody's had the opportunity to work in cloud, and it wouldn't be a reason to discount a candidate, but demonstrating some passion towards it can be really important. I've also used certifications throughout my career to upskill quickly in a certain area. So there was a time when I had to do a lot around architectures, and I really didn't have anyone to draw on in the company at the time to help solve the problems or the challenges that I had. I can't remember what it was, but it was a Microsoft solutions architect certification way back when that really helped me get the fundamentals and get kind of the breadth of everything I needed to consider. And same thing, I was talking about the lift and shift before when I was working at Xero and we did the lift and shift, it was going to solve all of our problems and we needed to move all our systems onto the cloud for the first time. We didn't know what a cloud was, and so I used the AWS certification to just get a really broad fundamental understanding really quickly. So through your career, at times it might make sense for you to dive into getting a certification.
Excellent, thank you.
For someone who wasn't sure what they could add, that was an incredible answer.
I feel like everyone on this panel has plenty to add. Eva, over to you.
Look, it definitely makes sense, and it matters also into which area of tech you are heading. Definitely, there in some positions the certifications is really required. However, from my experience, I really have to say that the experience, it is in many cases kind of a more important than just the study and the certification. And I'll give you two examples. First example is that before, when I worked on the senior management, I was actually making business decisions based on the data. And I got delivered many times data where I realized it doesn't make sense and I don't trust it. And this is something that it is really happening in many cases, that some of the data scientists or data analysts are just combining the data, delivering the data, but not really thinking about it if it really makes sense and if there is maybe something wrong with the data. And that's how I started, because I wanted to understand, because they were still telling me, no, that's correct, we put everything together, it must be correct. And that's why I started learning a little bit more how to analyze the data, because I wanted to find out where the hell is the problem. And the second example that I want to give you is right now with my experience with Sheila's data, because I'm also leading the data analytics team, and we are now creating dashboards about our community, sourcing data from Eventbrite, Zoom, all data, historical, all of the mix and everything. And I have a team of 12 people, and we are still facing things that a lot of people are just delivering some data, and I have a look at the data, and it doesn't really. There is something wrong, and the people don't see it. And these people have, let's say, they have certification, they studied it, and they have many areas covered, but that it's hard for them to bring it into reality and to really think about it and understand it. And if I ask them, can you explain what you see? They actually can't. And that's something what I'm trying to also point out. Every time, think about your audience, what you are trying to say, and if the message is really right, and if your data are correct, and if it is really saying what you need to say. What would I recommend? As Molly mentioned, also the networking. This is a great way how to move forward. Attend meetups, meet with people, join nonprofit community like She Loves Data, and this is a great way. I would actually also recommend something else, and this is again connected to the practice. Let's say you don't have any like a business experience working, and I'm sorry if I'm too much into data, but it's now more. It's something that I'm doing all the time, every day, and learn something and start working with that. Start working with the tool, and let's say, for example, there are different areas, let's say Tableau community. That's something that you start working with that. You let's say you are interested in golf, you are interested in weather, then download the data sources, work with it, and then you create dashboards and present it. And this is something, if someone comes to my team and tells me, look, I don't have any experience, I have never worked really that much with data, but this is what I'm creating in my free time, this is what I'm doing because I'm passionate about it, I will have a look at it, and I will like stare at her, and I would like, wow, I want you in the team. And this is something that I really see very much valuable. That's my recommendation.
Yeah, I love it. I've actually seen a lot of non-technical roles transition into data. I've seen that quite a lot, and it's such a huge space. And there's going to be no shortage of jobs in the data space to come. So it's a great area to get into. And would love to hear from you.
Yeah, sure. So certifications versus experience. As the taco commercial goes, why not both? By getting certifications, you're gaining experience because, if you start playing around and experimenting with AWS services, obviously you're going to be learning, and it's the best way to start learning, and you're already at the right place with CloudU. So, there's lots of places to learn, lots of opportunities to learn these days. Obviously, you've got the official AWS training site you're already on, and third-party partners, so to speak. You've got a Cloud Guru. Awesome. I used to be an instructor for one of the Sumerian apps that I did for a cloud, which is a great experience. Linux Academy, Udemy. Maybe I shouldn't be talking about those third parties, but it's still an opportunity to learn. And sometimes when people start learning cloud skills or whatever skills that may be, people don't know where to start. And having a format or a framework on what to study and what to learn, which are your areas of interest, it's a really great way to gain experience on that as well. Another piece of advice, being in many technical roles, is to make stuff and break stuff. Obviously within your own test AWS account. Don't do it in prod. To be honest, I have broken some production workloads, but if you're not breaking stuff, you're not doing stuff. That was my philosophy anyway. So yeah, just break stuff within your own test account. And in terms of the career pivoting, so I left a really cushy job in public sector being comfortable in that. But I spent way too long there. I should have left a long time ago because there was no career growth for me at that time. And here's another quote that I got from one of my colleagues at AWS. Be prepared to be uncomfortable. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. So it's being comfortable, you're not learning anything at all. So get prepared to get uncomfortable and leave your comfort zone. And with that, you can learn so many different things. And if you're still, obviously, there's a lot of risk involved in suddenly pivoting to a new role, especially an entry-level role. And that's, I think that just comes that. But especially with COVID times, it's really, yeah, there is a risk involved because, if you suddenly go to a contractor role, obviously there's no security going from a permanent role, for example. So in that case, you can think about going sideways in the same organization. Maybe you can work out a deal with maybe going and shadowing like a different, a tech-based role if you're not in tech, or another role within tech, or, whatever that may be. So that's a risk-free way of sort of, having a go for 1 or 2 days, just see what it's all about. And if you really like it, perhaps down the track, once you've got enough certifications and enough experience, perhaps think about contracting and take the leap. And then and that will lead into a permanent role if you're thinking of going that way. And some people remain contractors for the rest of their careers, but it is quite risky in terms of that job security. So yeah, weigh up the pros and cons is what I say.
Sorry, I was just going to say, can I add one more thing? You can also leverage your existing role. So you can, if you feel comfortable doing so, you can have that talk with your manager and say, this is where I want my career to go. I want to leverage any learning and training budgets that we might have internally. This is a good way for you to retain me as, one of the hard to hire diversity elements within this sector, and retain me as an employee by helping me retrain into the area that I want to be in. It's, it's turning that male-dominated side of this industry to our advantage in terms of we are highly desirable from being technical people of a minority within this technical space, and therefore being able to leverage that into being valuable to retain and therefore retrain is something that you can do in certain businesses, depending on your relationship with your manager and how comfortable you feel having those discussions.
Yeah, thanks, Molly. And that kind of leads on into my next question a bit, which is around, in my experience, one of the areas I've seen women find challenging is that career progression and moving into leadership roles. So I'd love to get some advice from you all, what advice you'd have for women looking to move into leadership or progressing their technical career. And we'll start with Michelle.
This is a huge topic. I love talking about this. Okay, I'll keep it small. I would say, as we've been discussing, if you don't feel like you're hanging on by the skin of your fingernails, you're probably not pushing yourself hard enough. So absolutely agree with being comfortable, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that way you're learning. Also, don't wait for someone to tell you you're ready. Don't wait for anybody to walk over and tap you on the shoulder and say you are now ready for leadership. I would say before you feel ready, just go for it. See what openings there are in your company, opportunities that are available internally, and just apply for them, because it takes practice to interview, and especially if you've gone from more of a technical roles to wanting to get into a leadership role, you're not going to nail that first interview necessarily. So you might as well get some practice in, and you get to really talk about the role too if you're interviewing internally, and figure out if that's something you do want to pursue, in a direction you do want to go in. And what you get usually is some great feedback about where your gaps are, so you know exactly what you need to do to get that leadership role when you're ready for it. And I would say my second point is really find a network and leverage the network. So, women tend to experience some challenges when they get into leadership positions that can be unique from their male peers as well. So having a group of women around you who have done this before, like tech leading ladies, we're coaching people all the time, giving advice on what is imposter syndrome, even identifying it and naming it for people that don't realize, they just think they're not good at their job, and helping them overcome it as well. Just apply. Don't wait for someone to ask you, and find a great network of people that have been there before and can support you.
I definitely feel like this is a topic for an entire panel session. But yeah, wholeheartedly agree with, if you don't ask, you don't get. Eva, would you have anything to add?
Look, I will make it very short. My biggest advice is actually, don't be scared to ask, and try to know a little bit more. I've the whole my career, I every time was trying to find the person that I like his or her job and learn from her, and I kept asking. So you made this decision. Why you made this decision? How about this? How about how about if you do it this way? Create a conversation. Try to understand the movements, because with leadership, you also need to switch your brain a little bit. You need to. It's also be a leader. You don't want to be a boss. You want to be the leader, so that the people look at you and they want to follow you. And so you need to switch a little bit also the mindset. And to me, every time helped when I had also feedback from other people. And that's the second thing, ask for the feedback, because sometimes you just see it your way, but the other people see it completely the other way. So ask for some advices, and ask also for the feedback in terms of your behavior, in terms of the way how you work, if the people are comfortable with your approach at work. Because if the people are on your side, then you are a good leader.
Yeah, I love it. The feedback conversation is so important. I always say to people that it doesn't matter whether it's true or not true, whatever the perception is, that is the truth. So if it's a perception, you need to find out what it is and deal with it. Mai, over to you.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of like leadership and career progression, I think it's not what you know, it's who you know. So you can know a lot of technical, you can have a lot of technical skills, and you might not get that job because the hiring manager maybe doesn't know you that well. So unfortunately, that is reality. So that's why networking is super important. And in terms of career progression, what I had to do when I joined AWS is, despite being AWS, it was really difficult to find someone that I could aspire to, who is similar to my background, as a woman, as a minority, who's really successful. And I couldn't find that within Australia. So I had to look outside of Australia, in Seattle. And it was really great to connect with her. I reached out to her and said, hey, do you mind doing a mentoring session, like just once a month, like for 30 minutes? And she was like, look, I'm busy. But like, I'm happy to do so. Like, yes. So, just having someone to aspire to. And, if you can't find someone within your organization, reach out to those in LinkedIn. Like, reach out to us. Like, we're here to help, fellow people out here today, and that's why we're here. So definitely research and look out for people that inspire you.
Love it. One of my favorite sayings is, if you can see her, you can be her. So I think the role model piece is really, really important, which is why we're all here today. And Molly, I'm sure you've got some more to add.
Always. I'll keep it brief though. To add on to Maya's excellent point about finding yourself a mentor and finding someone you can aspire to be, you have to remember to take the initiative as well. The people you're going to reach out to, they're busy, they're distracted. No one will ever care as much about your career as you do. You have to own it. You have to be your self-actuator when it comes to driving your network, driving your personal brand, and, you know, really making your success a reality for you. And success is what you make it and what you deem it to be. I think kicking imposter syndrome in the butt is a big one. We all feel it. You know, there are days where I feel like an absolute fraud, and I know that everyone else that I know does as well. And understanding, you know, what works for you in terms of getting around those things. In terms of applying for those roles, you know, we've kind of covered the whole gamut of the interview stage and doing the role and getting the feedback from how you're doing, and you know, the community side of everything. But get a man to read your resume before you send it in. I have never had such a pivotal life moment as when I had some friends of mine read through my resume before I submitted it to a role that I really wanted. And they said, you didn't like help do this thing. You owned it. You didn't like participate as a team in this thing. You ran it and initiated it and executed it. And like, my language was so passive and I didn't even realize. And they rewrote it for me right there. We were sitting at a bar in Melbourne and they rewrote it for me. And then I read it and I said, that is so arrogant. I can't send that anywhere. And they were like, no, that's what you did. And that's the truth. And getting past our own biases about how we sound and the way we speak. And every woman in this session and, you know, every mentor and every mentee needs to stop saying just. You are not just a woman. You are not just an engineer. You are not just someone trying to reskill into a different part of a career. You are you. And you are excellent. And you need to remember that every damn day. Sorry, I'm not allowed to swear on here, am
I can't remember that being part of the rules, but too late now.
Excellent.
What could go wrong when it's live, right?
I'll keep it to that one.
I feel like that was so passionate. I almost just want to stop it and finish on that. It was amazing. Thank you. But I am going to just go to one final wrap-up question for everyone. And that is, what do you wish you knew 10 years ago that would have helped your career or your life? And Molly, we're going to go back to you for the first answer because we can't finish on you because, you know, that would just keep going and going and going.
Oh, look, but I needed time to build up to my emotional, powerful finale. No, my big thing is don't sweat the small stuff. This is something that I still am failing to learn every day, but need to remind myself. And it's really important that you only hold yourself accountable to things that you can actually be responsible for. You know, every time someone leaves one of my teams, I feel heartbroken and I take it really personally. And I was reminded last week that people don't stay in their job for their HR manager. And that was entirely true. And it's not fair for me to blame myself or to feel accountable for those things. So remember, when you're taking something really personally, that you have to understand whether or not it was actually within your control. And look at that with a critical eye. If it was in your control, analyze what you can do better, learn from it, do it differently next time, but don't beat yourself up over it.
Amazing advice. Mai, any final bits of advice?
Yeah, so I guess this is like what you wish you knew 10 years ago. Okay. So for me, you know, don't waste time chasing relationships. Chase your dreams, chase your goals, chase opportunities. Now, you know, I spent too much time chasing after men. So that was a really, like, that was a waste of time. So don't do that. And even like friendships, you know, if they don't want to hang out with you, just leave it. Focus on yourself, be selfish, focus on your skills. I should have been a solutions architect more than 5 years ago if I focused more. So that was my bad. It's okay to be selfish. Carve out some time for yourself. That is what I impart to everyone here.
Fantastic. Super harsh, but I love it. Eva, over to you.
Look, I have it the same as mentioned, and actually, now what May said, that makes very big sense to me. And I remember telling this to myself the whole time: be more selfish, because I was still thinking about what I'm doing it and if it is right way, and like doubting and no, because at the end, and especially in business, no one really cares and no one is really your friend, to be honest, at the end. If it gets to the point, even the best colleagues are able to bury you. So um, be selfish, go through your goals, of course, in some kind of good borders, but think about yourself, basically, a lot, because then it will help you to grow, and the people will also approach you in a slightly different way if they can see your doubts. They stick digging to you and make you even doubt more about yourself. But if they see that you're a stable person, it will help you also to deal with other people much better.
Amazing. And last but not least, Michelle.
I wish I knew 10 years ago that I would accomplish so much more than I ever thought I could. And I think that's really important for everyone. You will accomplish way more, 100 times more than you think you can. So don't sell yourself short. Just approach everything with that growth mindset. You can learn anything that you need to learn. There's no such thing as a natural coder or a natural leader. These are all learned skills, and you can, if something's speaking to you and you're really passionate about it and you value it, you can absolutely learn that skill.
Amazing. Well, huge thank you, panelists, Molly, Mai, Eva, and Michelle. Thank you so much for joining us. I did also realize I forgot to introduce myself at the beginning. Donna Edwards also worked for AWS, but don't worry about me. It's not about me. And also shout out to Derek Bingham, who's been helping us behind the scenes today. And this has been part of the AWS She Builds CloudU training program. So if you're interested in getting some more information about that, then connect with me on LinkedIn. Or I'm sure you'll find it on the AWS website somewhere. So thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Have a great evening.
Bye.